Imagine walking into a showroom and seeing two cars. One costs $50,000. The other costs over $500,000. Both can take you from one place to another. Both have four wheels, leather seats, and powerful engines. Yet one of them is a Rolls-Royce. And somehow, despite its unbelievable price, there are people waiting months, sometimes years, just to get their hands on one. So what makes a Rolls-Royce so expensive? Is it the engine, the leather, the technology, or is there something much deeper behind this legendary brand? The answer begins more than 100 years ago. Back in 1904, two men met for the first time in England. One of them was Charles Rolls, a wealthy businessman who loved cars. The other was Henry Royce, an engineer obsessed with perfection. Their personalities were completely different, but together they shared one dream: to build the best car in the world. Not the fastest, not the cheapest, the best. And that single mission would eventually turn Rolls-Royce into one of the most prestigious luxury brands in human history. At a time when cars were unreliable and noisy, Henry Royce believed that every tiny detail mattered. If a part wasn't perfect, he refused to use it. He wanted people to experience something they had never experienced before: absolute perfection. That obsession with perfection became the DNA of Rolls-Royce. Over a century later, that philosophy hasn't changed. Today, while most car companies focus on producing millions of vehicles every year, Rolls-Royce does the exact opposite. It focuses on producing masterpieces. And that is where the mystery begins. Because when you buy a Rolls-Royce, you are not simply buying transportation, you are buying exclusivity. Every year, companies like Toyota and Volkswagen manufacture millions of vehicles. Their goal is simple: sell as many cars as possible. Rolls-Royce doesn't think that way. In fact, Rolls-Royce intentionally limits production. Why? Because scarcity creates desire. The fewer cars available, the more special they become. This strategy has transformed Rolls-Royce into something much bigger than an automobile company. It has become a status symbol, a sign of success, a statement that says, "I have reached the top." And that's exactly what wealthy buyers are paying for. But surprisingly, the price tag has very little to do with the engine. The real reason lies inside the cabin. Unlike mass-produced vehicles built by machines, a Rolls-Royce is handcrafted by skilled artisans who spend hundreds of hours perfecting every detail. The leather inside comes from specially selected cattle raised in environments free from barbed wire, ensuring that their skin remains free from scars. The wood veneers are carefully chosen and matched by experts so perfectly that the patterns flow seamlessly across the dashboard. Even the famous umbrella hidden inside the doors isn't just an ordinary umbrella. Everything inside a Rolls-Royce is designed to make the owner feel unique. But perhaps the most incredible feature is something you cannot even see: silence. Engineers spend years reducing vibrations and outside noise. Hundreds of kilograms of sound insulation are added throughout the car. Special tires are developed to absorb road noise. The result is an experience so quiet that many first-time passengers are shocked. Some describe it as driving inside a private jet. Others say it feels like floating on a cloud. And for Rolls-Royce customers, that feeling is priceless. Because luxury isn't about speed. Luxury is about comfort. Luxury is about emotion. Luxury is about making people feel different. And Rolls-Royce understands this better than almost anyone. But what truly separates Rolls-Royce from every other luxury car company isn't the leather, the wood, or even the silence. It's personalization. Because wealthy customers don't want the same thing everyone else has. They want something that belongs only to them. And Rolls-Royce is willing to make almost anything possible. Customers have requested interiors inspired by their yachts, family heritage symbols stitched into the seats, and paint colors created specifically for them. Some owners spend more money on customization than the price of an entire luxury car. And Rolls-Royce loves that, because it isn't selling cars, it's selling dreams. But perhaps the most fascinating part is this: many Rolls-Royce buyers don't purchase these cars because they need them. They buy them because they want to reward themselves. To them, a Rolls-Royce represents years of hard work, sacrifice, and success. It is a trophy, a symbol of achievement, and symbols have no fixed price, which explains why people are willing to spend hundreds of thousands and sometimes millions of dollars on a car. Because in the world of luxury, logic doesn't drive decisions, emotion does. And that is the secret that made Rolls-Royce one of the most expensive brands on earth. But there is another reason why Rolls-Royce costs so much. And strangely enough, it has nothing to do with the car itself. It has everything to do with human psychology. Because the truth is, wealthy people don't buy what everyone else can buy. They buy what very few people can have. And Rolls-Royce understands this better than almost any company on earth. Think about it. If Rolls-Royce suddenly started producing millions of cars every year, would it still feel special? Probably not. The magic would disappear, the exclusivity would vanish, and with it, the status. That's why Rolls-Royce has never tried to compete with Toyota, Ford, or Volkswagen. It doesn't want to sell to everyone. In fact, it wants the opposite. The company knows that rarity creates desire, and desire creates value. This strategy has worked for more than a century. But Rolls-Royce's customers are unlike ordinary car buyers. Most people look at fuel economy, they compare horsepower, they search for discounts. Rolls-Royce customers rarely do that because when you're worth hundreds of millions of dollars, saving $20,000 means almost nothing. Time becomes more valuable than money, comfort becomes more important than speed, and image becomes more important than specifications. This is why many billionaires own several cars, but still choose a Rolls-Royce when they want arrive somewhere in complete luxury. For them, it isn't transportation, it's an experience. And perhaps nobody understands this better than celebrities, royalty, and business tycoons. Over the years, Rolls-Royce has been owned by kings, queens, presidents, movie stars, and some of the richest people alive. These people could buy almost any car they want. Yet many of them choose Rolls-Royce. Why? Because luxury attracts luxury. Success attracts success, and prestige attracts prestige. This creates something incredibly powerful, reputation. Once a brand becomes associated with the world's elite, ordinary wealthy people naturally want to join that club, not because they need to, because they want to. Humans have always desired status. Thousands of years ago, kings wore crowns. Today, many successful people drive Rolls-Royces. Different symbols, same psychology. But here's where things become even more fascinating. Rolls-Royce doesn't advertise like normal companies. You rarely see flashy commercials. You don't see massive discounts. You don't hear slogans screaming for attention because the company doesn't need them. Its customers already know what Rolls-Royce represents. In fact, some experts believe that the less a luxury brand advertises, the more exclusive it feels. Scarcity creates curiosity, mystery creates desire, and desire creates demand. But perhaps the most shocking part is how much customers are willing to spend on customization. One customer requested a paint color that matched his private jet. Another wanted embroidery inspired by his family's history. Some owners have even spent hundreds of thousands of dollars adding unique features that no other Rolls-Royce in the world possesses. Imagine buying a car that literally exists nowhere else on Earth. A car built specifically for you. A machine that reflects your personality, your story, your success. Suddenly, the price no longer feels like the price of a car. It feels like the price of art. And that's exactly how Rolls-Royce sees itself, not as an automobile company, but as a creator of masterpieces, which explains why some people wait months or even years for delivery, because masterpieces take time. And in the world of luxury, waiting itself becomes part of the experience. The longer something takes to obtain, the more valuable it feels. And Rolls-Royce knows this, perhaps better than anyone. But there is one final secret, a secret that explains why Rolls-Royce remains untouchable even after more than 100 years. And surprisingly, it has nothing to do with cars at all. The final secret behind Rolls-Royce's unbelievable price has nothing to do with horsepower, leather, or even craftsmanship. It has everything to do with one thing: emotion. Because people don't remember numbers, they remember feelings. And Rolls-Royce sells feelings better than almost anyone. When a billionaire steps into a Rolls-Royce, he isn't thinking about fuel efficiency. He isn't comparing acceleration figures. He isn't wondering whether another car has a bigger touchscreen. He's feeling something. He's feeling success. He's feeling pride. He's feeling the reward for decades of sacrifice and hard work. And that feeling is priceless. You see, the world's richest people don't buy products. They buy experiences. They buy memories. They buy symbols. And Rolls-Royce has become one of the most powerful symbols of success in modern history. But what's truly remarkable is that this reputation wasn't built overnight. It took more than 100 years, more than 100 years of perfection, more than 100 years of protecting the brand, more than 100 years of refusing to compromise. Most companies chase growth. They want to become bigger. Rolls-Royce wanted something different. It wanted to become legendary. And there is a huge difference between the two, because anyone can become popular, but very few can become timeless. Over the decades, hundreds of car companies have disappeared. Some went bankrupt, others were forgotten, but Rolls-Royce survived wars, economic crises, recessions, and changing technologies. And yet, somehow, it became stronger. Why? Because while trends change, prestige doesn't. True luxury doesn't expire. True craftsmanship never goes out of style. And perhaps that's why Rolls-Royce customers are willing to spend amounts of money that most people find impossible to understand. To ordinary people, a car is simply transportation. But to the ultra-wealthy, a Rolls-Royce is a statement, a reward, a masterpiece. And masterpieces are never judged by practicality. Nobody asks whether $1 million painting is fuel efficient. Nobody questions why rare watches sell for millions, because their value comes from emotion, not logic. And Rolls-Royce understands this perfectly. In fact, the company doesn't even view companies like Toyota or Ford as competitors because they are playing completely different games. Toyota sells transportation. Rolls-Royce sells dreams. Toyota sells reliability. Rolls-Royce sells exclusivity. Toyota sells to millions. Rolls-Royce sells to a select few. And that's exactly why both companies are successful. But here's something fascinating. The more expensive Rolls-Royce becomes, the more people desire it, which seems completely backward. After all, shouldn't higher prices reduce demand? Normally, yes, but luxury follows different rules. In luxury, higher prices often increase desirability because expensive things signal rarity, and rarity signals status. This is the psychology that has built entire empires. Ferrari understands it, Hermes understands it, Rolex understands it, and Rolls-Royce has mastered it, perhaps better than anyone. Today, Rolls-Royce isn't just building cars, it's creating rolling pieces of art. Machines designed not merely to move people from one place to another, but to make every journey unforgettable. And maybe that's why, after more than a century, the company still represents the ultimate dream for millions around the world. Uh, because dreams don't have price tags, they have stories. And the story of Rolls-Royce is simple. Two men, one vision, and an obsession with perfection that changed the automotive world forever. So the next time you see a Rolls-Royce silently gliding down the road, remember this. You're not just looking at an expensive car, you're looking at more than 100 years of history, more than 100 years of craftsmanship, more than 100 years of prestige, and perhaps the greatest lesson of all. Sometimes people aren't paying for what something does, they're paying for what it represents. And that is why Rolls-Royce is so expensive.